What's up, soul warriors? This is another Sunday night soul session, and in all honesty, it almost didn't happen. Yeah, there's some things going on in my family right now, and today I had to cancel another broadcast with my really good friend Eric McCoy of the High While Clean podcast and the madly successful LA Talk radio show. What were you thinking? He and I are doing a new project called Walk a Mile in My Shoes, and we were both really excited to get it started today. But my family is experiencing a bit of an outbreak of COVID right now. And we will talk a little bit more tonight with my guest host and beautiful friend, Pamela Topjian of Breakthrough Hypnotherapy, because it has to do with fear. And tonight we are going to talk about the fear that comes with transitioning, the fear that comes with being transgender in the world. And we're also going to talk about a big talk of detransitioning and transition regret. And what we're mainly going to talk about, what we're going to pull from all of this, is that happiness is an inside job. And we in the transgender community, our transitioning, when we step into gender transition, it's very physical. And I myself struggled in the very beginning, wanting to see my body and my appearance change so bad because I just knew after a lifetime of being uncomfortable in my skin, wanting to have the things that I missed out on. I also somewhere knew that that external action was not going to fulfill all of my internal needs. I had been through some of this before, and tonight we will talk a little bit about that and my story and how I have come to the place to be learning who I truly am, aside from being transgender, aside from being in recovery, aside from all of that external things, knowing who I am as a human being. And that's one of the things that I hope to help give you through this series, this Sunday Night Soul series on the Transgender Mentor. So if you're watching on the Transgender Mentor YouTube channel, thank you. And I ask that you would like and share and make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when we come up with these new videos. And also, if you have people in your family or friends that you know that are transitioning or thinking about transitioning, questioning LGBTQ or cisgendered human beings that just want to understand, please send them this link. And don't forget, we have a private Transgender Mentor Facebook group now where you can go and talk on the group privately and no one else will see your posts. And Pamela's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So I'm so ready to get into this. You all always lift my spirits. And, again, I have to apologize to my good friend Eric, but I'm glad that I was able managed to come here tonight. So I love you guys so much. I'm ready to get Pamela on. So if y'all are ready, I'm ready. Let's go. What's up, Pamela Topjian? Welcome,
Hi.
welcome, welcome.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here once again. Sunday Night Soul Sessions here on the Transgender Mentor YouTube channel and Facebook group. Hey, thanks so much for just being here. It's nice to see a friendly
Yeah.
face, a very understanding face, and to those who are watching with us now and who will watch this on the replay, welcome and thank you. I see Joni Faulkner. Hey, Joni, it's good to see you as well. And if I can't see you or haven't said hey, it's just because I can't see you. Remember to give StreamYard your permission if you want your comments seen.
Mm.
Pamela, you and I both watched a few, well, I've watched a few talks by Walt now. Talk to me. I really liked your take on Walt, and tell me, how do I say his last name? It's not Harvey. It's
I don't. It's Heyer. So
yeah,
there's
I'm
no
not quite
V.
I didn't think so.
Hayer,
Yeah,
maybe
Walt
Hayer, like
Hayer. I think that's what it is.
Hayer. I think that is. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I ran across what Walt's one of Walt's talks on the Heritage Foundation YouTube when I was preparing for my sensitivity training that I did for a treatment center this past week. And I I could not I just got completely drawn into this video. And in this video, Walt Hare is talking about his transition regret. He went through full transition surgeries and figured out, like a lot of people do, that happiness it did not fulfill all of his needs. And so he is now speaking, I don't know if he's speaking against transgender people or transitioning, but I get the feeling that he is a bit. Um you and I watched that, and at some point, if you know how, and we can put a link somewhere either after we post this video or something, for other people to kind of see where we're coming from or see this video. It was, yeah. Yeah, Heritage Foundation, ouch. Yeah, the name kind of goes ahead and gives you, I kind of knew I was in the wrong place, but I just couldn't stop myself, and I think it was divine intervention because
Mm,
I wanted to try to put myself in the shoes of Walt. I was very angry at first, which that's what we do when we are very identified with an identity of
yeah.
being transgender or whatever it is. And I was very angry at first. I think I even reached out to you and I was
Hmm.
angry. And and then I started thinking about, well, okay, let me put myself in Walt's shoes. And I listened to Walt's story
Hmm.
from that place. And I think you and I both realized very quickly what was happening with Walt. And the sad part is, for me, that Walt is probably still so unhappy.
Yeah.
And
That came through loud and clear. He's angry. He's unhappy. He's regretful. And I don't think he's speaking out against transgender people as a whole. I think he's speaking out more about people transitioning fully, full surgery, top, bottom, everything, you know, uh, having surgery at such a young age, or the
yeah,
hormone blockers. He spoke a lot about
he
how,
did.
because children that are not yet teens that are transgender, rather than having surgery or taking hormones to,
Right.
for the opposite sex, um, they can stop their
Yes.
their puberty from
Right.
happening until they can
Right.
make that decision for themselves. And a lot of kids, I don't think it's noticeable, because a lot of kids, they progress and mature at different ages anyway. So,
Mhm.
the females that, the born females that that feel that they're transgender male, um, they won't develop breasts, and they won't, their ovaries and their uterus, and that won't develop the way a woman's would, so, and they won't get the curvy body as much, um, so then they can make a decision after 18 on their own, so they don't have to go through,
Which
you
would have
know
saved my life. Gosh,
right.
if probably if
And
hormone blockers would have been an option for me, it would have
yeah,
saved me trouble. But I have watched other, and that's when we're talking about that one video, that is very true. But
yeah.
as I went down the Walt rabbit hole,
Yeah.
um Yeah, it gets a little, it gets a little deeper,
He's angry.
especially, yes, he's
He's an
very
angry
angry.
man, and I
He's
think
very
that
angry.
he is on a mission to, like, he needs somewhere to project that,
Yeah.
and I think that he regrets his own decisions, and so he just I don't know that he's so much like an enemy of transgender. I think that he just wants to get this out there to know that it's not all going to be peaches and roses and rainbows and whatever once you transition, which is what we really wanted to, everybody to take away from this, is that
Yes.
happiness comes from within you, nothing to do with your physical body, even though, it will help you. Like you said, it would have made a huge difference in your life if you didn't have to go through puberty as a young woman. So, that did help. I'm sure it helped a lot with your, feeling more at home within yourself, once you did go through that transition. And
Well,
it
it
would have
can't be
helped you a
that's
lot.
it.
But it's right,
Yeah,
but
but
that's not it. That's not
yeah,
the whole thing. Right, right.
I want people to, I can say that beginning medical, going through this medical transition has
Mhm.
been an amazing part of my life, and I'm
Yeah,
so grateful. But it is but one part of it. And
right.
and and that's so much what
Mhm.
the transgender mentor is really built upon
Yeah,
is let's do this part safely. And
yeah.
also, but let's also meet somewhere in the middle and make sure, because I don't want there to be other human beings to go through what Walt has been through.
Right, right. There's a lot of
Because
internal work that needs to go
a
on.
lot. So it
Mhm.
needs to be just like the recovery process,
Mhm.
stopping using is not enough. If
Right,
we
right.
just stop using, we've managed to, stop using, but we haven't done anything to take care of that within that keeps
Right.
us, escaping in that way. And I think that's really my I know my purpose, and I know
Yeah.
your heart as well, is that, hey, look, this is but one part. And if you're depending solely upon this one part
Mhm.
to fix your life or make you happy or you live all of those dreams that maybe like myself I had growing up, that every time, I met an obstacle that was female related or something I
Mhm.
didn't do because I didn't want to be seen, I would always say, but if I were in my right body, I could do
Yeah.
this. And if I were in my right body, I could do
Mhm.
this. And I spoke a bit about it in the opening. I've been through this before, as when my childhood trauma was happening, I gained a lot of weight because I thought
Mhm.
that molestation was about attraction, and
Right.
so I just subconsciously began to overeat, and so I was a big kid.
Mhm.
And of course, I carried that coping mechanism into teenage and young adult. So I was a very heavy at the age of 20. I was close to 300 pounds at that point, and
Mhm.
I had had many stomach issues going on and went to the doctor, talked to this doctor, and I tried diets and was very shameful about my weight, my body. It was terrible for body dysphoria,
Mhm.
terrible, being heavy for me. And so they said, well, we've got this nifty surgery. Look into it, research it, see what you think. So I had a gastric bypass
Mhm.
as a 20-year-old. And I just remember, because just as I said so many of those things, if I were in a thin body, I would be able to do this. And
Right.
and let's just call it what it is. We are programmed to believe that thin people have more energy and thin people are happier and thin people do these things that us big folks can't do. And there's
Mhm.
so much external programming that, again, I thought small body, fixed life.
Yeah.
I lost the weight very rapidly, and also dealt with the disappointment of realizing that it did not fill the hole. That I
Right.
was still, the core, and was still carrying my baggage, still, had all of my stuff. And therefore, I slipped even further down the hole of addiction
Yeah.
and self sabotage. So that's what going into this to physical transition. And for Walt, I also think with Walt that not only is Walt angry, but I think Walt is too also trying his best to belong. I think that Walt
Mm.
feels, and to be accepted back into this country's male, you know,
Mhm.
dominated society.
Right.
Walt has absolutely very visibly had some very feminizing surgeries.
Mhm.
Therefore, I don't think Walt can put a suit back on and waltz back into, the
Yeah.
masculine population and get that acceptance that he's so hungry for, that I believe Walt
And
thinks is going to fix him.
he's an older gentleman too.
Much
So
older.
the that goes along with he was transgender, or he probably would deny that now, but
Mhm.
at a time when people didn't know what it was, and maybe he didn't even have a word for it at that time, when he was younger. And I don't know that he had good counseling beforehand. I do know that right now, any kids, any families that are going to, pediatricians, before 18 years old, which, we've discussed before, that many and most true transgender people know, whether they have a word for it or not, which they usually don't at that age, but they know
Right.
really young that they're not feeling like they're in the right body, or that they identify more with mom or dad or the opposite, and they don't want to be the little girl or the little boy. They know this at a very young age. And whatever the reason was that he did not feel like he belonged or he was in his right body, whatever words he used for it at that time, he is pinning, from what I saw anyway, he's pinning all of this on one little thing that happened. His grandmother put him in a purple little dress, and he got a
Yeah.
lot of praise for that. And so he wanted more praise. And so he acted like that was something that he wanted to do. And so he's
Mhm.
saying that, a lot of little kids will dress up, and of course they want praise and they want attention. And but I don't really think that, I have been around so many children in my life. I used to work in daycare centers. I've been a nanny. I have two children of my own. I've had stepchildren. Just I've been around a lot of children, and and almost every single little boy will put on a dress, or some female kind of carry around a little purse or put on some jewelry or high heels. They walk in their mother's shoes, and
Exploration, yep.
yeah, it's just playing, just play dress up. It doesn't
Well, and
mean
they're
that
just
they.
learning. Yeah, the
Yeah.
world's new to them. There's nothing until someone, that is old, an adult, either scolds for that, or,
Right.
we don't even know the harm that we do. Sometimes we can, if we just let the process play out, they will
Yeah.
become who they are. I think, unfortunately, in a very toxic masculine society, and let's not forget that I think that there is some toxic femininity as well,
Absolutely.
in that, we see stuff like that probably as either new parents or just parents in general, and we think, oh no,
Hmm.
something's happening, my child's going to be gay, or my child's going to be trans, or you get that off. We don't do that.
Right.
When we
Be a
do,
man.
yes,
Yeah.
when we do something so drastic, I think we're coming more to understand who children are, and how brand new they are, and how pure consciousness they are, and
Hmm.
how they're really just exploring
Our whole
everything,
world. Yeah.
broccoli and
Right.
what's potatoes and different things. And I think that when we imprint our own fears
Hmm.
about things onto children, it is dangerous. Whether it's like
Yeah.
Walt's case where he was praised for that, which I gotta believe his grandmother didn't continue to praise him for dressing up in
Right.
purple dresses after, this little age, which we think is funny or cute sometimes when they do that.
Mhm.
We don't really flip out so much when a little girl puts on her daddy's shoes.
Right, I was gonna say the opposite doesn't happen with little girls. There's no big deal,
Mhm.
made when little girls put on, like you said, daddy's shoes
It's
or
cute.
his
Yep.
tie or something,
Yep.
or want to
Yep.
dress up like dad or something, or the
Right.
older brothers, or playing basketball out in the driveway with the older brothers is not the same as when a little
Right.
boy is, dancing, doing ballet with his older sister or whatever,
Right.
yeah, so it's really really something, but I think that, he was really, I don't I definitely don't think that that was the incident that made him think he was transgender or he was in the wrong
No.
body. But he
No.
is, he mentioned that so many times
Yeah.
that I don't think he has a lot of experience with children, really. Um, and I'm surprised that, others on the panel or around him, and maybe they are, but others aren't telling him, you know, and maybe he is, I don't know, but I mean, he needs therapy still. He needs therapy.
Desperately.
And um, he's very obviously an angry man and he's trying to pin it on something. And I do think
Right.
that there are people, definitely there are people that regret,
Sure.
transitioning, but it's not, I don't think that any parents are pushing them into being the opposite gender. I don't think that,
I
um,
can't imagine that. I can't say it's not, but I just can't imagine because it's not just now the child that's going to go through this. That parent is now going through this as well and is
yeah.
going to be the one that is demonized, and that's really what's happening because we are a society that don't really listen to children. And because I read the comments under that, and I
Mm,
saw these very phobic
right.
comments that were under there, and I even saw one person say, yeah, kids are dumbasses. And
Mhm.
it gave me, that summed up the entire comment section of this
Yeah.
is how people really see children. We see children as, we don't see them as the exploring, the new conscious, the everything's bright and new. We
Mhm.
see them as needing us to survive versus them exploring. And I
Right.
have to say that you know, people can step into, just like Walt. I mean, this is a real thing. When we are chasing external, whatever that may be, when we are chasing external happiness to fill in an internal hole,
Mhm.
there are all of those things we're going to regret. I mean, we've all probably had one night stands chasing that same thing, and you regret. We do things with our hair, our clothes, our bodies. I mean, I know just as many people that have had gastric bypass surgery that
Mhm.
have regretted doing that because they found out
Absolutely.
what I found out. It
Mhm.
didn't fill the hole.
Mhm.
And for those people that go through detransition, because I am absolutely, and this may sound funny or controversial or whatever, it may piss some people off. I'm not pro transgendered. I mean, the first moment that you have some kind of dysphoria, you should run to the doctor and get you some hormones. That's not my
Mhm.
stance
Right.
because
No way.
I am for, human beings really finding that true place of fulfillment
Yes.
within and without. And that's
Yes.
why I myself spent years in counseling and many different, mental health modalities, just because, to me, I didn't know, even when I was identifying as lesbian, I didn't know if that was because of my childhood trauma, And I questioned that. I was the first
Right,
person to
sure.
question, is this, and I blamed him for a long time that, you made me different. You made me different than other people because,
Yeah.
again, that's what I heard.
Mhm.
People said, well, you're only gay because, this is, what happened to you. And
Yeah.
it's always if you found the right one. Anyway, but,
Yeah.
that's what you hear. So, of course, you question. And,
Mhm.
I questioned, but when I question something in my life, I tend to find the answer,
Yeah.
especially when it's within as much as is in my control, you know? And so I urge people to really explore yourself and
Right.
explore many things before you begin to make, and let's also say this: medical transitioning is not permanent. It
Mhm.
is partially reversible. If I stopped taking testosterone right now, I would not necessarily lose facial hair, but eventually I wouldn't grow any more, any extra. I would eventually, my body would shape back down.
Mhm.
My face would get fuller. My voice would get a little bit lighter.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of these things are not permanent. The same with hormone blockers; they're not permanent. And I think for
Right.
children that are 14 and under, except in extreme cases, that
Mhm.
yeah, maybe we should deal mostly in the head and the heart before we
Yeah.
begin to alter the body. But
Yeah.
if we're searching in that way and we're treating human beings in that way, if we're not demonizing children that feel different, if we are not, going overboard and attacking children when they are exploring their new world, if we're not doing that, and we have professionals that have a heart for healing and humanity
Mhm.
versus judgment, then, you know, we then know when a child insists that this is who I am,
Yeah.
that they are insisting because they now know. And at that point, I think that anything after that, when we refuse to acknowledge or help them, is like torture. It is
Yeah,
like self
and then
torture.
they shut down. It's not only torture, but then they shut down and they don't share things with you, and you are no longer part of the circle of people they can trust. That they know that they
Absolutely.
can come to you with anything. They no longer will if you're not listening to something that is so close to them, so important to them. So yeah, so we want to listen to the kids for sure. But I think that with Walt, um, I don't know that he understands that these children are getting a lot of counseling and the families are getting a lot of counseling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen a lot of that more so than just his story. I've looked,
Yeah.
before doing this with you, I've looked into a lot of these different documentaries and these different stories and that, and nowadays there is nobody that is going to stop, hormones or put anybody on hormones or go through surgery without it's a long process.
Yes, it
So
is not a yeah.
they want to avoid people regretting that surgery or even just the hormones, whether it's the hormone blockers or, the hormones of the sex that they feel they are. You know, there's a lot there's it's a big process now, and even with the children, they have family therapy, and it's not a therapy, it's more of a self discovery, and making sure that the families and the children understand what does this mean for you,
Yeah.
over the next couple weeks and the next couple of years and for your life. What does this mean if we do this, or if we do this, or if we do this? What does this all mean down the road? And they can also search for, you know were these children possibly abused and the family doesn't know it,
Mhm.
or are they looking for happiness or to get out of that body that has caused them pain for some
Yeah.
other reasons. So it's not
Yeah.
always, it definitely isn't always about being feeling that they are not true within themselves because of the gender, but they
Right.
might think that that's what it is because they hear about that and they're like, oh,
Very true.
so these therapists, will help them to figure that out. And I
Well,
don't think that that was a around
no,
at all. That wasn't an option
without
for a
yeah,
while. So,
without a doubt. And I think that while we've made great strides, we're
yes.
still not in a place where it is available for everyone in
Oh,
every
no.
place. And that's, again, I hope that I think when we lock in on something, when we perceive something a certain way, and we don't attempt to understand, we just shut it down where it is by our own perception of that's anything in our lives. We're
Mhm.
really doing ourselves, humanity, and our communities a disservice, because
Oh,
this is
absolutely.
really what families are searching for. This is not an ideal situation that a family wants to be in. They're not just happy because when they love their children, it makes you sad when they're sad. And
Mhm.
to know a child feels very trapped in the wrong body, if with that bond with that child, that will make you sad within itself. It's not this
Right.
happy occasion that says, "Oh, great, we were born a male and you feel like female. Let's celebrate you," because they also know the world we live in. And now what's
Mhm.
going to happen after this process? I remember, and I was 44 when I
Mhm.
began my physical process. I
Mhm.
remember about a year in, laying there in my bed, and this fear gripped me, like truly gripped me inside of my body, and
Mhm.
I was like, this is real. Like, this is getting real.
Yeah.
It almost starts as this fairy tale. Everything you've dreamed about for however long you've known you were transgender, and now you're going through this process and you have all these dreams and this excitement. But that's when you're inside of your safe space.
Mhm.
When you go out into the world, it's a much different experience for a lot. The majority of us, it's a much different experience. There are some amazing places in the world where things are more accepted, and people don't have to go through as much. But there are some of us that are going to walk through fire
Mhm.
to have our own happiness. And there was that moment that gripped me that said, this is really getting real. It was a theory before. In that first year, there weren't a lot of changes because I had a doctor that was very concerned with me being healthy while
Right.
doing this,
Mhm.
and being patient for results
Right.
versus just, and that's something that I hope we will touch on in this series, that
Mhm.
the doctors that, be with a doctor who is concerned with your health in the long run, not just blasting you with hormones so that
Right.
you get the changes you want. It's very important. These things
It's a
can
long
alter your
process.
body. It
Mhm.
is. And so, but I felt that like all of a sudden, I'm seeing changes where I'm excited. And then all of a sudden, I start thinking about my family, because
Yeah.
again, theory versus real life. And now they're going to be walking with me. There are
Mhm.
people that love me, and they're going to see the snickers, and they're going to see the
Right.
stares, and they're going to fear for their lives. They're going to
Mhm.
fear for their attack.
Right.
It is a much bigger situation than just hormones, surgery, and
And just
poof,
changing
now your
bodies.
life
Yeah.
is perfect. Exactly. I I kind, sometimes I wish it were like that. But
Mhm.
that is, I think, why the importance of ongoing, working
Right.
on you and gaining your confidence, and learning who you are as a soul, as a human being, and not as a body, not
Right.
as a
Learning to
mind.
love yourself from
Yes.
within,
Yes.
regardless of the outside. Learning to see
Yes.
yourself, like you said, as a soul, a
Yes.
spirit, as the inside without the body. You have to learn to
Absolutely.
love that person.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I think, for me, it has taken a whole program. That's why I thank recovery for
Mhm.
preparing me for transition, because all of the
Yeah.
same modalities that I use in recovery are what I use for transition, you
And
know,
lots of stigma for both for
lots.
recovery and any LGBTQ community people. So yeah,
Yes, and everybody, and
lots of
stick
stigma.
around. Everyone stick around to the end of the video, as we are going to go through that alphabet tonight and
Yes.
actually give, because Pamela brought up a really good, um, a really good point to me that said, we take for granted that, everybody knows what all the letters stand for. Even when I say them, they don't necessarily all know the definition. And while that's my perception, is that I didn't even think of that. I just
Yeah.
assumed everyone knew. So we are going to go through that. So if you
Yeah,
happen
we'll
not
get
to
we'll
be
get there.
sure, if you happen not to be sure what some of those things truly mean, we are going to get there. But I just, I'm enjoying talking about this because it is just so important.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Put a lot of energy into grooming a child with an instinctual agility and high heels that I enjoy as an adult cis smell to this very day. I like that. I like that. I like that. See, I just think that the only way for us to really come together is just to come together and understand and listen to what each other are saying. I listened to Walt, and when I went down the Walt rabbit hole, I really did that because I needed to see him as a human being, and I knew that if I stayed angry with Walt for what I felt like Walt was doing to the movement. See, I think that these movements are what harm our connection in a lot of ways, because our these movements set us all apart versus us just having conversations.
It's still a
That
separation.
it's a
Yeah.
separation when if we just sat down and spoke to each other, and
Right.
really just talked about things, we don't even have to come out on the end in agreement
Right.
to understand how to walk in one another's shoes as
Right.
much as we possibly can. And that's why, for Walt Hayer, if Walt is even still alive, and if Walt, ever hears something like this, I wish Walt all the happiness Walt can
Yeah,
endure. I
he's
mean,
very unhappy. He needs those well wishes for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And I think one of the ways any of us in our lives can really understand if we are externalizing and living in external pursuits for happiness is how much blame do we put outside of us in any given day. That was one of the things that I caught very early in Walt's
Yeah.
talk, was that Walt did a lot of blaming. It was the
Mhm.
grandmother, then it was the doctors for
Right.
suggesting, it was, all these people's fault. And I never
Right.
heard Walt ever bring it on home
Right.
and say I was confused.
Right. He
I
never
just
talked about his own confusion within himself or how
never.
he felt along the way
Right,
or his own um, deep reflection within himself even, to try to
right.
figure that out. It was all like you said, it was first the grandma, then it was other adults in his life, it was abuse that happened to him, it was the doctors. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I
I
think
never
that
heard him say it had anything to do with his
never.
own happiness or finding his own true self or
Right.
anything like that. Yeah.
Or
Definitely.
saying, simply I was in pursuit of that. And when
Right.
I got there, because we have to understand that Walt didn't go through one surgery or two surgeries.
Yeah,
Walt's
he's
had
been.
quite a few surgeries. So he's
Yeah.
been looking for this, you know,
Mhm.
to almost excess. I mean, he went
Right.
all in, and that makes me sad within, whether it's
Mhm.
transgender or plastic surgery. People get addicted to plastic surgery simply for that same reason, where they've got what's perfect in their mind. This is what happiness represents, this perfect figure. And when I get there,
Yeah.
and
Plenty of
the
celebrities that look so monstrous now,
right,
literally, that if they would have just went through the aging process, they would be beautiful people, beautiful older people,
absolutely,
but they couldn't.
absolutely,
They couldn't stand that, on the outside, the aging face and body
sure,
was what was robbing their happiness, according, is the way they felt, because so much was put on their looks, for these celebrities. It's
yeah,
really a shame and really sad to see. And I think the
yeah,
same thing happened with him, as he was, he just couldn't stand, himself. And so he had to change, and he kept changing and kept changing. Like you said, he's had a lot of other surgeries that aren't just, transition, gender
mm-hmm,
transition surgeries.
yeah,
So, but I think his stance is almost, you know, that's another thing that he's thinking is going to bring him happiness if he speaks
yes,
out against this, or if he speaks out
yes.
against, this is what happened to me and this might be happening with you, or he's almost saying it, he's almost
He's
feels
almost
like
saying,
it will happen.
yes,
Like
he's
this
almost
is
saying,
this is
beware.
right,
Yes,
that
that's what I get.
he's
Beware.
almost, I don't remember exact words, but there was something that he said that made me feel like he was saying that there is no true
Yeah. That. Oh, yeah.
transgender, that you are what
Yeah.
you are born, and that that's not a real thing. So it's
Yes.
not that he's
Yes.
against it, but he doesn't believe it anymore just because it didn't work out for him. And other
Right.
people, I'm sure, have said to him, I mean we've saw people, and he there are people who regret the surgeries,
Yes.
and even just the hormones. And so they reach out to him, or those are his audience, a lot of them. And so he's getting some feedback that
Oh, yeah.
is making him feel like, just like we've talked before, whatever you really put your focus on is what more is going to come to you, whether it's through
Yep.
algorithms, online, or even just your own law of
Yep.
attraction kind of a thing. So
Yep.
he's getting a lot of that feedback, which is feeding into him feeling like this isn't even
Absolutely.
real. There are no true transgender people. And
Absolutely.
and that's, you have to be aware of knowing that what you're looking at, you're attracting more of that opinion, and you have to be
Yes.
open-minded to say, well, whether you agree with them or not, let's hear another point of view.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I keep this. That's why I try to keep this platform within, this is my experience. and
Right,
and
right.
if you find help or hope or something to discuss in that, whether it be recovery or whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever you may find in there, if it speaks to you, amazing. But
Right.
never will I try to assume the role of
Hmm.
telling somebody else what is true or not
Right,
true for them. And
right.
while I was doing that sensitivity training for that center, someone brought that up to me. They
Hmm.
asked me, because we were kind of talking about both sides,
Hmm.
pro this and anti this. And she spoke that about the algorithm. That's why I know it is
Hmm.
for us to bring it up, because you spoke it too. But she asked me, do I believe that it is a bit keeping people stuck in their same belief systems? Because just like online, which almost all of us are, unless you're living off
Hmm.
grid, we're online. And as these companies follow us and what we're liking and what we're watching and what we're
Hmm.
disliking, they're sending us right behind it the same subject
Right,
matter. And
right. They're
so we
paying
are getting
attention. Yeah.
constant, yes, and we are getting fed the things that we stand to agree with. So
Hmm.
is it, and do we, because I didn't really even think about that until she asked me that question. And
Hmm.
that was a big moment of eye opening for me to say,
Yeah.
that really is the truth in the world right now. I
Hmm.
mean, that that's what's happening, that we've got to be aware of that, and therefore seek things out, that seek out different
Right.
approaches and different, different subject matter, all the way down to even the movies or the music that we're watching. I mean,
Mhm.
life is about discovery, evolution, and evolving within ourselves in our own world, not just staying the same in that box. And I am grateful that we are in the world right now that is awakening to each of our own truth. What is true for me? And
Yeah.
if you and I share, because we do share a lot of the same likes and some dislikes, and we share a lot of the same subjects that we like, but it's not that we agree on everything, and that is what makes, I think that's what makes a better friendship in some ways, a better
Yeah.
connection, you know, because I
Yeah, you
learned
don't want to
from
be
you.
clones of your friends and just
Right,
all, completely agree on everything, I
right,
think that when you disagree with a friend, that really is a big, indicator of how close you are. If you can disagree and then discuss it and,
true.
not have any kind of an argument, but have a discussion about it, an open discussion, that's a true statement of the how, true the friendship is,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's always a good indicator, a good, not necessarily test, but that's a good
true.
indicator of, how close people really are and
Yeah.
how how close they are in their hearts, just in their souls, and
And
being
how we
open
can,
minded. Yeah.
yeah, and how we can really learn from one another, especially those that are different from us. When I had the inspiration for Walk a Mile in My Shoes, it was because I had experienced some really terrible discrimination, and I was seeing a lot of discrimination, not even in for being transgender. It was in the recovery community,
Mhm.
and I had just gotten so heavy. The energy was so heavy. I was feeling really down and depressed, and I was watching this community of people that are handed the opportunity to love and accept and be beautiful examples in the world for, breaking negative stigma about, you can and give hope where you can come back from anything. Never give up on yourself, never
Mhm.
give up. You can come back from anything. And I'm watching this general breakdown because you've got 12 steppers, or you got this and you got this group, and
Mhm.
everybody's doing what the world's doing right now, which is being together with only like minded and standing
Yeah.
against whatever is different.
Mhm.
And surely, at what point do we understand that that's not working, and it's not getting us where we are, I believe, destined and designed to go? And, I really, I believe in humanity. And I believe that versus judging something that scares us or makes us uncomfortable, whether it's the homeless man on the street that we
Mhm.
walk over that talks to himself, if we took a moment to know that guy was once just like you,
Right.
or just
I
like
always I
me.
always think when I see a woman on the streets, I always think, you know, I'm not a, I'm not a Christian person, but I think like, there but by the grace of God, go the kind of a thing,
Absolutely.
that could have
Yes.
so I came so close to being that woman,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so yeah, and
Yeah.
just who knows what put me, from being that person compared to that person, and there I always, look at them and just think to myself, there is hope, there is hope,
Absolutely.
almost like a little prayer for them as you're looking at them.
Absolutely. Gosh, can you imagine if more of us began to do that, to 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 actually say a small prayer, or well wish, a prayer or a well wish to
Yeah,
people that
just
we,
sending peace,
yeah,
love,
just
healing,
send
just
it.
just send it through your
Yeah,
mind to them, and
just send it
yeah, if everybody did that when
versus,
they passed them.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and versus that, that innate thing that rises up in us, that where we've
Hmm.
been trained to judge and walk way around, and fear everything. Not that we shouldn't stay safe. I mean, I don't want anybody to take it
Right.
that way, but I'm just saying, there. Let's, I don't know. Let's just get back to what we're here for. I mean, like each one of human, what's external matters not. We all have the same five basic needs. We all need to be loved. We all need to feel appreciated. We all need to feel safe. We all, need to feel connected to another human being. If COVID has taught us nothing, it's taught us
Right.
that.
Right.
How, even those that, were hermited before, that say, I don't need anybody, that was
Hmm.
always because the option was still there. You
Right.
had that
Right.
choice. But when that choice wasn't there, the reality of how much we need one another
Right.
is became real.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can get caught up in the fear of what's next if we don't wake up now. What
Yeah.
is it to come back, you know, from
I think
that?
I think
It's
there will always be. I think no matter what, there will always be, and I don't mean to separate people at all, but there's always going to be people, souls that are more aware and awakened. And then there's going to be those that never will be in this lifetime, and I believe that there is rebirth and reincarnation. And each experience that we go through is, for us to evolve. It's an opportunity to evolve. It doesn't mean that it's a lesson and we're failing or passing. It's just the opportunity presents itself. And then that's where you go. And I don't, I'm careful not to say, just like we've talked about before, with even as kids with grades, I don't want to say anybody's above anybody else or anything, but experiences are there for the opportunity to evolve. And whatever we're going through, um, there's reasons for that. I do believe that whatever we're going through, there's reasons for that in our lives. So,
yeah,
I think that there's always going to be those people that just have not been evolving through their experiences. And that's another thing I'd like to bring up, is that people so often, it's a great thing to be helping other people with what's going on in their life a lot of the time, but you can support them, encourage them, and give and be there for them in whatever way they need. But you can also rob them of the opportunity to grow if you do
yeah,
everything for them or take it away from them, or
yeah.
shield them.
Yes,
People
yes,
need to
for sure.
experience things.
Yeah, and that's really true in for family members in active addiction. I
Right.
mean, a lot of times the enablers that are feel like they're doing the best they can. I've stood in that space.
Hmm.
I've been an enabler. I've been enabled, and
Hmm.
you think that you're doing that out of a place of love, and you don't know what else to do. It's mainly because to and that will rob them of that rock bottom moment, that moment that could jar them
Right.
back in. I often say, as much as I loved my grandparents, and I still do with all my heart,
Hmm.
they had to die for me to live,
Hmm.
because that's how they loved, but they resented the love that they were given. They enabled
Hmm.
me while resenting me, and it was a shameful existence,
Mm.
for me and even for them, because people
Yeah.
were telling them, you shouldn't do that, you should let Lona just fall on, you da 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 da.
Hmm.
And I was in that situation with someone I love too, and so it's a very hard place to be. and
I have been
and
in that position as well.
that's I and just speaking from that experience, there's a lot that now we're waking up because of this big opioid epidemic, and different things, that now we have more services and understanding for the families of
Hmm.
people that are in active addiction, where those
Right.
families didn't feel like they're the ones, that they needed any help, and there wasn't any help available other
Right.
than that Al-Anon. That was like
Right.
the only thing that people had to turn to, and if you didn't
Hmm.
know it about it, you
Yeah.
didn't know. And so
And you know,
now,
and it's
because
funny,
of
nobody
this,
ever told me about that at the time that I needed it. Nobody ever told me about that. I didn't know about it until, probably just a few years ago,
yeah,
maybe more than 5 years ago, but certainly not 10 years ago, at a time
yeah,
that I really could have used it. Nobody ever brought that
yeah.
up to me. Even the doctors of, the family member that was, having addiction issues.
Well, and again, that's where that whole that mentality, that belief system is,
Yeah.
that it's the all the on the addict, that
Mhm. Right.
that's just where it all lives. And now we've grown because of family members like stepping up and saying, I
Right.
need some help too. It's almost
Yeah.
as if they're in that same cycle,
Oh
but
my
they're not getting
gosh.
the high at the end. You're in that same loop, but you're not getting the reward. You're you
I
know
think that many people in recovery do not have any idea the perspective of the family members.
Yeah.
They might have some idea, but really not. They don't really, they think if they're getting clean, then everything's okay. Or if they're in
Mhm.
recovery now, they should be accepted. Or, um, or just, I don't know. I just, you know, I had worked in detox and recovery in a couple different places, in nursing, and I was almost not taken seriously because I was a normie because I never had, and
Yeah.
the patients that were there did not know my story. They all want to know when they're talking to any staff, they want to know, are you in recovery? Are you in recovery? And then they judge whether they can trust you or whether you really know
Right.
or not. And they're not,
Right.
um, they didn't know that I had family members also that, I had went through a whole issue, through a whole
Mhm.
time of addiction and recovery
Yeah.
with. And to me, that perspective is just as important. Um,
Extremely.
and
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, but but
Well,
yeah.
it makes perfect sense because, you know, I I was the same way as the patients you're talking about. I really gauged
Yeah.
who I could trust and knew, you don't understand me, you don't
Mhm.
get it. And I
Yeah.
really thought in my first year of recovery, when I had finally, said, man, I'm going to fix this, and I'm gonna fix this. And then, my wife and I went into it together, and then she
Mhm.
went into a relapse. That was
Mhm.
probably the hardest
Oh, I'm sure.
time of my life, and I was just screaming at, whatever and whoever was listening, why am I
Mhm.
going through this? And I
Mhm.
had that same mentality you come from the active addiction place, where it's a lot of blame. I'm the victim. Why are
Yeah.
you doing this to me? See, I'm trying to do right, and all but
Yeah.
wrong keeps happening. It's a process just like anything else. And
Mhm.
but as that went on, because it went on for like 2 years, and while in that, I was going through all of those things: the enabling, the
Mhm.
blaming, the shaming, the don't you love us enough. I mean, I heard myself saying things that had been said to me that I knew didn't work, but I was
Yeah.
so desperate. You get so desperate and so caught up in that, emotional roller coaster and loop, that you're in it. And I finally started realizing, which is how she ended up getting it herself, is when I let go of the reins and started
Mhm.
stopping. I worked on why I was enabling. I worked on my shame.
Mhm.
I worked on my blame. I took my focus off of her, started
Mhm.
working on my issues. And now I see that it's because I needed that perspective.
Mhm.
I I could have, like you said, I could have looked at it and had an idea. I knew, you're hurting people, but until you've sat in that space, you
Yeah.
don't exactly know exactly how. And I needed that perspective because
Yeah.
I can look at parents and families now and counsel them. just as well as counseling somebody who's in active addiction or
Right.
recovery.
Right.
And I'm grateful for that now. I'm grateful that my wife
Right.
is now, celebrating her 5 years clean
Mhm.
and sober and in recovery, and working hard to be the best human that she can be.
Yeah.
See, I don't think there's
She's doing amazing.
she really is. I
Yeah.
couldn't be prouder of her.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm so proud of whether you're coming back from active addiction, whether you're recovering from trauma of any sort, childhood, adulthood, whatever it is, trauma is trauma, and
Yes.
nothing is any worse or better or worse or
Right.
different or any of that. This is your trip around the sun, as in this place, in this time. This is yours. And everything, in all honesty, is here for you. And in every moment, this was life changing for me to realize. In every moment, we are being presented two opportunities. How are we going to face it? Do we face it through the eyes of fear? Do we face it through the eyes of love? And I don't mean love in the way that's gushy, girlfriend, boyfriend, lovey dovey, that kind of love. I'm talking about that
Universal
divine
love.
love. Yes,
Right.
that divine love that is encompasses understanding and the ability to see the positive in this. Like, how can this grow me? Not the positive of rays of sunshine and unicorn rainbow farts, but literally, this sucks right now. How can it
Mhm.
grow me?
Right, exactly. What is this here? What is this in front of me for? Why am I
Right,
seeing this? Why has this stopped me from my
right.
life?
Yes,
Why has this been put here in front of me regardless of who you think, whether it's God or the universe, or if you're, blaming whatever, it's part of your life. So regardless of what it
yes,
is,
right,
then it's for you to step back and say, why is this here? And how am I
right,
going to handle this? How is the best way to handle this?
right, right.
Self
And
reflection rather than anything on
yes,
the outside.
rather than deflection, self reflection rather than
Hmm.
deflecting out and on
Yeah.
to others. And, that's unfortunately, you know, where we are. And I believe that from, we're shifting to a place where we start to realize how much of our lives we have, I guess, donated to the external program labels, limits of what somebody is supposed to be. And I think that's where our suffering comes in. Suffering comes in going through something that you think you shouldn't be, or you can't see the reason for, or
Right.
not living up to a label we've created for ourselves. That's like, the the stages of awakening, where you're in that goal oriented, say, level 2, where you've got your goal out in front of you, and now you can get it, and your purpose, and you're finding your purpose. And then you hit that level 3 where you realize, wait a minute, that external thing can't be my purpose. It didn't fill the gap. So
Hmm.
now I got to really
Always more,
touch.
always more.
Yes, now I really got to touch the divine within me and get truly connected. And that's, that's what some of these, like, my whole catastrophe catastrophe year has been about, realizing that I could have, all of the goals that I wanted to achieve, they would have still brought me up empty if I don't do this work, and
Yes.
then get there when it's time. We suffer when we have a goal that we think we should have already achieved. That's when we know we're really external for us.
Yeah.
And,
Causes a lot of anxiety.
it does
Yep.
completely. And if we live in the past, that's where we experience depression, because we can't
Hmm.
be depressed about something that hasn't happened yet, but we
Hmm.
can very much be anxious. That's where
Right.
anxiety comes in. Like, what are we thinking is going to happen in the future, whether it's the next moment or, a year from now? that's anxiety.
Mhm.
Depression's living in the past, and so I'm glad to be having these talks with you, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we share our Tuesday talks or our regular Thursday talks on this platform. And I just hope that people get it and get something from it, that
Mhm.
maybe you realize you're not
Well,
alone.
they already are. They already are. So
So
regardless
grateful
of
for
how
that.
big this gets or how long we continue this, people are
Hmm.
already joining in the discussion. And as you know, I've
Yes.
been getting some questions, and the
Yes.
group, the group is not growing real fast, but it's a
Hmm.
private group, and that's why. And there are people in there that have said, they're not ready to tell their story. They're not ready to sort of come out with how they're feeling because they're maybe not even fully sure themselves, and that's totally fine. You don't
Yes.
have to be, um, identified as transgender to be in the transgender group. If you have any questions about it, or anybody in your family or your friends or any loved ones, or you're questioning yourself and you just aren't even sure what's going on, and you're thinking, if that comes across your, you know it crosses your path to be that transgender mentor group, then maybe
Hmm.
you're supposed to be in there. I mean, because it is a private group and it's not easy to find. On
Yes.
the transgender mentor Facebook page, um, there's links to it there. And,
Good.
as we've said before too, that you can always contact me. I'm a lot more easier to get a hold of. Of course, you can
Hmm.
contact Lona as well, but you can contact me, and I'll probably see it sooner. And
Yes, for sure.
so, for me, you could go to Pamela at hypnobreakthrough.com, or find me on Facebook. It's Pamela Marie as one word. And then you see my name right there. So, but it's Pamela Marie and then my last name there,
Yeah.
on Facebook, or Breakthrough Hypnotherapy.
Yes, and in the show description, I've got Pamela's follow or Instagram
Okay.
follow, and
Yeah, I
the
didn't see it yet.
yeah, and your website. But I'm glad that you
Okay.
shared, that other stuff, your preferred, where you and I should get that and get it in there too. We'll have to make another one of those copy and paste things so that I can get there, because I do. People are finding. I find that people are very comfortable, talking to you about, a lot of
Hmm.
different things, and that's an amazing trait to have. And
Yeah.
I think that people feel a good and accepting heart. So please, do that. I am very likely not to see your messages at this time because I am working to basically full-time jobs, as well as doing this. This is what I have to do in the
Mhm.
summertime. So, but Pamela is so amazingly, available and open, because she does work from home, and so she has
Mhm.
a just a great presence there. So reach out with your questions. I'm grateful that we've had so many comments here and so many
Mhm.
people being able to be open about who they are and what they're going through, regardless of what it is, recovery, uh, LGBTQ in any kind of way, or just, just awakening and understanding, and wanting to know more about the humans around you. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all of you. It's quite amazing to see so many people engaged, and I am grateful for you all. Um, so yeah, please reach out to Pamela. And I hate that we still have to make this announcement, but we do ask that you just keep it respectful. You don't have to agree with everything that's said here, but we can't discuss it if we attack one another. And so I hope that our energy opens that up to where people feel like that.
I would like to say really quick, I know we're running out
Please
of
do.
time, but the first time you said this, so this is about our fourth one doing this, around their fourth one or so.
Yeah.
And the first time you said that, it kind of set me back. I was kind of shocked, like, why would anybody be mean? And it's just so funny because I don't even have that experience.
Yeah.
And so I never even considered anybody would be, we'd have trolls or anybody nasty in the comments, or reaching out, through any of the transgender mentor networks. It didn't even cross my mind, which is, eye opening for me as well. I mean, I did know, obviously, from talking to you and other people, and from a lot of the reading and watching of things that I've seen through this, that there is a lot of suicide, there's a lot of hate crimes and everything else. But I never thought, oh, you and I talking, who's going to be mean to us?
You
So
would be surprised,
I know. Well, not
in
anymore, but
in my, in on my recovery platforms, especially when we were reaching 40,000 people a day, it was get the comments, would just floor
yeah.
me, and I had to work through a lot of that, being hurt
Hmm.
and letting that, get into my spirit. That's hard,
Yeah.
we're all humans, and regardless, see somebody who's trans, or somebody wearing, 13 different colors in their hair or something,
Yeah.
you think, it's easy to think, well, there goes that confident person. I can say whatever. They put themselves out there, they deserve it. That person's still a human being,
Still a human being with a
should
heart
be
and a soul. Yeah.
yeah, and should be celebrating for having the courage to be themselves, because
Right.
that's what we're here to be. I mean,
And
shoot,
you don't
there's
have to
nobody else.
understand it. And you don't have
You
to
don't.
understand, and you don't have to agree, but
You
you can
don't.
have respect for another human being.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's nobody on earth that has the same thumbprints as me
Right.
or
Right.
you. And surely, I think if we were meant to all be the same, we just would be, but we're not.
We're not.
And,
Right.
it's something that strikes you funny, ask yourself why. Don't
Hmm.
don't deflect and put it out on someone else. Ask yourself why that
Right.
bothers you so much, and you may
Right.
find that you learn so much more about yourself that you may fall even deeper in love with you and who
Hmm.
you are. In any relationship, we always have to get to know, we want to intimately get to know that other person, but we rarely ever take the time to intimately get to know ourselves. And
Yeah.
when
There's
you're going through
self-reflection
recovery,
is so important. Yeah.
yeah, and when you're going through recovery, you're going through gender transition, or anything that causes you to go deeply within, you start to learn a lot. and
Yeah.
and it's time for us to heal. When we heal
Hmm.
ourselves, we heal humanity. Can you
Right.
imagine if 3 billion people stopped trying to fight each other and started healing themselves, where we would be? It would
Right.
be crazy good. That's my hope. People say I'm a dreamer, but I can't be the only one.
Right.
Well, look, so I'm going to post on the Transgender Mentor Facebook page. I'm going to
Okay.
openly post all of the definitions. And you know
Okay.
what? I'm going to do something in these broadcasts that kind of give people almost like a little table or template to what we're talking about. So you and I are going to have to get our creative brains together,
Okay.
and we'll figure something out. But absolutely, Lunga. We will definitely be praying for y'all's situation, and I do ask all of you to send your prayers, your positive energy, or whatever way you connect with the divine. I ask that you would put my baby sister and her husband, who are both battling COVID right now. My baby sister, who has multiple sclerosis, she is battling this, and has some heart trouble and different things. So, I'm battling fear right now for our families, and I know there's many other families out in the world right now going through
Yeah.
this very same thing. And I want you to know that my prayers and my energy are going right back out to all of you. I don't even have to know you or know that. I just know that there are other human beings suffering. And just like we've talked about, when it touches you, you have a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
So fight the fear with love. Darkness doesn't run away when we turn on the light. It just is just as light. And so we need to do that with ourselves, and love, and try to put ourselves in other people's shoes anytime we get the chance. It's been another amazing conversation. I I'm grateful that I did this again. I when Eric and I were getting ready to tape our show, I was less than an hour from our taping and just found out, about this, and having contact with my sister, it puts all of us in a state of fear when COVID really gets real and stuff. So, you know, um, so it was just I couldn't get my mind into what we were going to talk about.
Right.
Well, we're going to do that, and that's going to be another series, the Walk a Mile in My Shoes podcast. So I look forward to that. Got some stuff coming up with Martin John Garcia too. So,
Me
we got a
too.
whole bunch. I know we got a whole bunch of good stuff going on. Another Sunday night soul session next week. You guys get in touch with Pamela or myself and let us know, what subjects do you want us to talk about? What can we bring? What's going on with you and your family or someone you know, or if there's just something that you have questions about, any awakening questions, any soul healing questions, and especially if you've got a question about how hypnotherapy could change and heal your life, make sure you reach out to Pamela Topjian at www.hypnobreakthrough.com, because Pamela is willing to give the gift of a free session, full session of hypnotherapy, just for you being a listener here or on the Recovery Soul Food podcast. So make sure that you get in touch with her and tell her that you
Yes.
saw her right here on the Transgender Mentor. And she is going to let you understand what that feels like, what it is, how it can help, and how it can heal. And it's absolutely one of the biggest parts of my life. And I'm so grateful. So, y'all get in touch with Pamela. Absolutely amazing. Another amazing Sunday night soul session with you, Pamela, and I'm so grateful for you. I really am. Thank you so,
I'm so
so,
honored to
so
be here.
much.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
it is absolutely my pleasure and honor to have you here. So, everybody, until next time, remember you can catch me live this Wednesday at 7:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Recovery Soul Food YouTube channel, Facebook page. And until next Sunday, Pamela and I will see you then. Y'all have an amazing, amazing week. We love you. Bye.